You're listening to The Flickcast, a pop culture podcast about stuff nerds love. I am Chris Ulrich, and Joe Dilworth is here. Joe, how are you now?
Good, and you?
Not so bad. Sorry.
Excellent. Yes. No, we've been doing that around our house continuously. That and some other choice phrases. So.
Yeah, you were right, man. You had picked Letterkenny last week. That's from Letterkenny, in case people are wondering. You had picked it last week, and I was skeptical, but I jumped on the bandwagon, and I thought I'd take you seriously as I should have, and I really enjoyed watching the show. I'm on six seasons now, or I've done 6 seasons now. I've watched 6 seasons now.
Excellent.
And I'm really liking it, and we should talk about it today. But I think first we should dive right into some more WandaVision. And this might be spoilers for people if you're not caught up. It's only 4 episodes. I think you should probably be able to watch 4 episodes at this point. But I gotta say, this episode that just aired, the most recent episode, amazing.
That was so cool. And yes, we're gonna completely do spoilers. So if you haven't watched the pivotal 4th episode, you should go watch that and then come back.
Exactly. So I think it's no surprise to find out that Wanda is sort of doing most of this herself. But
Yes.
do you think even given the okay, first of all, let me just back up and say seeing everyone come back from the snap or the blip or whatever they're calling it was pretty intense, actually. I kind of thought that was a great way to start that episode. What do you think about that?
Oh, I thought that was amazing. I mean, we saw glimpses in like the Spider-Man movie of people popping back in, but to actually get the whole thing from the perspective of someone coming back was pretty amazing. It was kind of a cool perspective to get, to really kind of understand how, disorienting it is, not just for the people that didn't go away, but for the people coming back. And they really brought that home in a nice way in this episode. So that was really cool. That was a great way to start it. You're right.
A nice way, but also a sad way for Monica Rambeau, obviously. But,
Yes.
I like how they keep calling her Captain Rambo. Like she's like Rambo.
I know.
I was like, it's
well,
pronounced Rambeau, people. It's not, it's the French.
yes.
I guess it's Creole technically, maybe in New Orleans dialect, but yeah, Captain Rambeau. I thought that was pretty good. But anyway, but yeah, I mean, what a shitty way for her to come back. It's like I just was sitting here for like 20 minutes. I think I fell asleep. No, it's been several years. You were gone, and what? Oh man, that was horrible. I felt so bad for her.
It was bittersweet for obviously fans of the Captain Marvel movie to get a definitive end for a character from that movie too. So it was like, well, that's kind of lame that she's not going to be still alive for the sequel, but okay.
Well, she can come back in flashbacks. I mean, there's no saying that Captain Marvel has to take place in present day either. It still could be in the past, right?
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Or it could be something else. But she's got a whole career now. She's going to go off and be James Bond. So
we can hope. I think that would be awesome
that
if we ever get to see James Bond. But that's another.
Right. That's another topic. Yeah, that got pushed back again, so that'll be fun if we ever see that movie. I'm sure it's amazing, but
I'll say real quick that I find the fact that they keep pushing it back, and it's now been 2 years since they shot it, that they're actually may have to go in and tweak some scenes with technology in it, because the cutting edge technology they filmed 2 years ago is not cutting edge anymore. But
well, what do you? I know we'll get back to WandaVision in a second, but
Sure.
You bring up an interesting point. What do you think the reasoning is? Because a lot of other studios now, Warner Brothers in particular, is like, you know what, let's just do it. So what do you think the reasoning is to just keep pushing the James Bond movie back? I would imagine they should just release it at some point. But
yeah,
why?
I mean,
Why?
that I don't understand, because I'm certain that any streaming service is lined up with a blank check to get the rights to air that first, right? So it's not.
You would think so, yeah.
It shouldn't be lack of places to do it. I don't know why they're absolutely determined that it must be seen in theaters and only theaters, and that they're only going to release it when theaters are widely open. So you're right. I don't get that, because
Yeah,
we're now.
you think like Netflix or somebody's like, here's $200 million or some shit, because they probably get that back, but they probably have to charge for it, right? So
Well, apparently Netflix did step up, when they started delaying it the first few times, and were like, hey, listen, we'll give you probably more money than you spent on this to be able to air it first, and they're like, "Nah, we're gonna go theatrical." So I don't understand it, and I don't
Well,
know.
I mean, James Bond is like a spectacle movie, and they probably
Yeah,
have some really big effects and really big, set pieces and stuff like they always do in James Bond films. But I don't know about you, but my first James Bond film experience was on TV.
yeah, mine too. Yeah,
So I mean, and 4x6 or square format TV, so not even letterboxed.
yeah,
So you're like, this is a great thing, and it was cool, and there was gadgets and explosions and guys rappelling down walls and bombs blowing up, and the whole volcano exploded, or whatever. I think that was my first Bond movie. That's not Doctor No. Maybe it was Spy Who Loved Me. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, my first experiences were on TV, and so I feel like people got pretty big TVs at home, and
yeah.
I think things should be seen in a theater. Obviously, that's my first thought about all movies. You should go to the theater, and I would love to go to the
Absolutely,
theater.
absolutely.
But barring that, it seems sort of silly now at this point to say, well, we're just going to hold out and hold out and hold out because now there's different COVID variants and shit. So who knows what's going to happen? But
Yeah.
anyway, this is kind of a non sequitur but I was just curious what you thought, and I think you're absolutely right. I think it's kind of dumb, but it's their movie. I guess they'll just do what they're going to do. So
Yeah, because I think even Disney is coming around to, Black Widow is just not going to be seen in the theater probably. So we need to we happen to have a streaming service. We could actually, release it. So I think they're going to do a simultaneous release or something like that too. So but yeah, that's
that's a
another
line.
one.
That's a line from a Red Hot Chili Peppers song, right? Simultaneous. Anyway, I won't
Yes.
sing. Sorry.
But
Anyway,
that's another movie that's been kind of
yeah,
shelved even. I mean, I don't even think it currently has a release date, and it's like,
I think it does, but it's like end of 2021 or something, like
yeah.
October or something. But anyway, that was not really a topic to switch to. I apologize
No, that, but
for non sequituring the shit out of this thing. But I was just curious about that. But it does bring up an interesting point about Black Widow too. Is Disney seems to be doing well with WandaVision. WandaVision is everyone's talking about it. What's the buzz? It's WandaVision, right? So
yeah.
and everyone's talking about this episode. And unfortunately, this is the thing I try to watch like as soon as I can. I don't wait up till 3 a.m. or anything, but I try to watch it as soon as I can because there's always some dickhead who spoils it on Twitter or something, like first thing in the morning. So I love the fact that they brought Darcy back. I love the fact that they did this whole thing where she's the one, it turns out, who was watching the TV and making notes.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
I mean, it was clever, and so she's been there all along, right? So, but what was the weirdest thing for you in the episode?
The weirdest thing.
Like the weirdest, like the that moment.
Oh,
Do you have
wow.
one of those?
There was kind of a few. I mean, I liked how they looped everything back into the little snippets that we've seen in the first 3 episodes that were kind of weird, like the whole drone being changed into a helicopter, the beekeeper guy being a sword. But I think seeing Darcy was my biggest, like, oh, cool. And yeah, see, there's too many of them. I like how they loop in several different movies. I mean, we've got Monica Rambeau, obviously, from Captain Marvel, Jimmy Woo from the Ant-Man movies, Darcy from the Thor movies. But it makes sense, right? If you have these highly qualified individuals, they do that in the comics too. Even the background characters, appear in each other's comic book series and stuff like that. So it's like it makes sense. So that didn't feel forced or anything, and it was great seeing. Darcy for me was kind of a highlight of the first couple Thor movies because she was obviously meant for the inroad for all the nerds watching the movie, and I'm like, I identify with her, and that's really cool that she's a part of this huge story, and that means that any computer nerd can be a part of it, right? But
well, yeah, I think she was there for comic relief too, obviously, because Jane was very serious and whatever, and you would think they would have called Jade for this particular thing because she's the world renowned, the most leading expert on astrophysics or whatever. But
Sure.
you have to imagine she's busy with Love and Thunder right now, right? So
exactly.
So they can't get her. So they get Darcy, who's a doctor, which I thought was cool. I love Kat Dennings, so I thought it was great to bring her back. But I think the craziest moment for me, not the craziest, but there was like a couple of them.
Yeah.
One of them was seeing how truly evil Wanda can be. Like the look on her face, like you're no, but she's like all pissed, and when she does that to Monica, that was an interesting side of her. that you really haven't, even when she was quote unquote evil in Ultron. And obviously seeing Vision as a zombie was weird too.
That part was like, yeah, that was creepy, and unfortunately, I think that leads credence to the fact that Vision's gone. It's obvious that she. I still don't think, only because she seemed, I guess, okay about things at Tony Stark's funeral in Endgame. Oh, spoilers. I don't think that it's her necessarily just having a complete breakdown. I still think, only because they're like it's showing that oh my God, it's Wanda in the fourth episode. We still have 5 episodes to go, so I still think there's something else, like somebody trying to manipulate her or use their powers for their own means, and by doing it, they brought up memories of Vision and stuff, and caused her to kind of break. So I still think she's being manipulated, or somebody's doing this to her. So
Well, yeah, I mean that makes sense. I agree with you. We don't know what happened between between the end of Endgame
yes,
and now to do this to her. I didn't feel like she was totally unstable. You're at the funeral. I agree with. She seemed okay.
right,
She's like, oh, they're we'll remember them. They do
yeah,
know. She knows, and they both do. She didn't seem upset. I mean, she was upset, obviously, but
yeah.
not like I'm crazy. Crazy
Yeah,
upset.
exactly. She didn't have a sinister look on her face or anything. But
Or they need to explain what happened to her.
yeah, yeah,
But I think you're right. It's more like outside influences. So, I don't remember where I saw this, but someone on the internet had an interesting theory that the whole world was actually in Vision's mind,
huh?
because he's the one who seems to be the one like, we don't have to stay here, Wanda. It's not whatever. And she's like, oh, we do have to stay here because you're dead.
Right,
But
right,
he's the one who's kind of fighting against it a little bit, and also because of the sitcom sort of settings of everything, it's kind of like Vision almost rebooting himself
oh,
and learning and coming through, because they made the point like in Ultron, where Ultron learns about humanity by kind of watching TV. They show the visuals of him looking at screens of everything inside of his his brain basically.
right,
And
right.
so is this all in Vision's mind as he's coming back to life, which I thought was kind of interesting, or is Wanda trying to do something, or is everyone's other people are saying, oh, it's Mephisto or whatever, and
Right.
I don't know that, because they haven't really allowed for the possibility of actual magic. I think in Marvel, in the MCU, it's still like, what did they say in Thor? They said magic is just science people don't understand, right?
Right.
Basically.
Yeah, and even in Doctor Strange, it's been kind of like this energy thing. It's not really
It's all from the Infinity Stones, right? It's like, and
right.
then they're talking about in WandaVision, they're talking about all this radiation. Oh, it's not dangerous yet, but maybe it's dangerous enough, or it's enough to trigger mutation in people to turn on, make mutants and stuff. That was
Yes.
another, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. But is Wanda generating this because her power comes from the Infinity Stones, right? From the Power Stone.
Right.
So is this all because this other creature, Mephisto, whatever you want to call him, is trying to sap her, or tap her into her power and try to
Right.
steal it
Right.
so he can come back to life? Or I don't know. And there's also another theory I saw where this is how Monica gets her powers, because she becomes Photon
Oh,
at some point,
right.
right?
Yeah. I mean, that would.
So did
that
she
would
get radiated because of this thing, and now she's going to have powers? Because also she seemed pretty tough. I mean, she went through a bunch of buildings and stuff, and she seems okay.
work? Yeah.
So I'm like, does she already have powers? I don't know. So we don't know. But yeah, the Vision thing with him being, a zombie in the eyes, like gray eyes, like Wanda. I'm like, whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah, that was
That was some
wicked.
pretty. That
Yeah,
was cool though. I hate to say it, but
and then seeing her expel Monica and like physically do it, I thought maybe she just like wished her away and she popped out, but it was like no, she like went through walls, and it was like wow.
right, and that's the first time we've actually seen Wanda's powers, because she tried to like dispel the goose at one point, but it was just like a puff of red dust, like
Right.
in Wizard of Oz or whatever. But this is the first time we've seen her actual powers, like in the movies.
Yeah, exactly. And it
Like
was
the
like
the
ooh,
gold, the red balls of energy or whatever. So
yes. I gotta say, I know the episodes are like 30 minutes long, but they don't. I feel like we get a lot in each episode, and it isn't just like, oh, it's over in like 5 minutes. It feels like a full episode of stuff. So especially this last one.
Yeah,
So
I agree with you. We got a lot of stuff, and I think there's a lot more to go.
yeah.
But the other thing that lends credence to the idea that it's being manipulated somehow by somebody else is that all the glitches in the Matrix when like
Yes.
Darcy's watching the screen and then it just clips out and then nothing happens.
Yes.
So it's like it's being edited by somebody or censored by somebody. So
Yeah. She
I
even
feel
said that.
like
She's
yeah.
like, "Did you see that? Is this being, edited?" And they kept trying to, the one glitchy part. She kept rewinding to try to see what was going on, and it was like, nope, it's edited in real time or whatever. So yeah, I do think there's something else going on because, like I said, I would be disappointed if it was all just purely her having a breakdown because she can't handle being without her man. So
Well, that's right. And I think that Marvel is smart enough to be able to explain it
yeah,
like they did with, time travel, time heist, and all that stuff.
yes,
It may not make sense, but it makes sense in the logic of the MCU, right?
right, right,
So whatever explanation this is, if it's Mephisto or if it's something else, or if Wanda just goes crazy or whatever, there'll be a reason. And it'll also piss off some people. I'm sure people won't like it or whatever, but that's
yeah.
fine. It's just there will be a reason, a logic reason that makes sense in the MCU. Although, can we call it the MCU because it's not cinematic universe anymore
Yeah,
because it's TV now, so you really can't call it the MCU, I guess. But anyway, so it's just the MU,
yeah, yes.
the MMU because it's the Marvel Multiverse verse. Anyway,
Ah,
so I mean, I guess you could make the argument: is this even taking place on our Earth, right?
that's true. I mean,
So maybe it's a parallel universe. Maybe it's like one of those one of those like splinter realities that the old ancient one was talking about, right?
I
That
have
Tilda Swinton was talking about on that rooftop one day
that
with
Tilda.
the Hulk.
Yes.
Ah, Tilda, if you do this, it'll just spark off this way, and then you're like, that's a bad idea. It's fine for your reality, but our reality's fucked.
Yeah, and so I'd really
Bruce.
rather you not do that, Bruce. Come on.
Bruce, we're all counting on you, Bruce. It's up to you.
Yes.
But
Yes.
she's great, man. I love Tilda Swinton. She was great. You know what? I realized the ancient one was supposed to be, a different kind of person, a different person, but I thought she was amazing in that role. I
Oh,
mean, Tilda
yeah.
Swinton's amazing in everything, let's be honest, but
Yeah, absolutely.
it was, I think it lended like gravitas to that part
Yeah,
because she's just
yes.
so good. It's like, oh, wow, I totally believe what she's saying. Because if she says it's magic or whatever, doctor, then there's more to the life, then I believe it. So
She's definitely one of those. I think we've talked about this before. She's one of those natural actors that you believe you're instantly pulled into their role. They don't look like they're acting. And I don't know if I'm describing that right, but she
no, I know what you mean. Yeah.
she is whatever character that she plays, and it's because Kevin Costner, in any role Kevin Costner's in, he's Kevin Costner. Same thing with Tom Cruise, right? It's very rare that either one of them play something outside their wheelhouse that is kind of stretching it. Tilda Swinton plays all kinds of stuff, and every single character she plays, it's like I believe that character is real, and she doesn't.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's never forced. It's always a natural acting. So yeah, she was great as the Ancient One.
If we're talking about comic book movies, she was also great as the angel in Constantine
Oh
too.
yeah, she was fantastic.
Gabriel. Yeah. She elevated that movie. I mean, I like that movie. People dump on Constantine with Keanu Reeves, but I thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. So
I'm a
anyway.
fan, and I was excited that recently I think he and some other key people are talking about wanting to do a sequel. I'm like, I would totally watch that.
Yeah, I would absolutely watch that. I mean, it had Rachel Weisz in it too, which is also a soft spot. I have a soft spot for her.
Sure,
So
sure.
I thought she was amazing. But yeah, Tilda Swinton was great in that, and I forget the guy's name who played the devil. He was awesome. It was a great movie.
Yeah.
I think it definitely didn't get as much. It didn't get as much props as it should have. But anyway, that's not important now. Tilda Swinton, great as the Ancient One. But you made an interesting point about the helicopter. I think that helicopter was actually the first drone that Monica sent in.
Yes,
right, because it was a
exactly.
helicopter.
Yeah.
So and then they kept sending drones in. They were disappearing. But why the bees? Do you think?
Yeah, I don't. Well, so he was in a hazmat suit or whatever, and then he was transformed into a beekeeper. So I don't know. Maybe whatever is ultimately controlling this wanted to find, whatever equivalent to what he was wearing that would translate into sitcom land or something. I don't know, but yeah, that was kind of weird, and we never see his face either. So
But but people were talking about how they thought that was somebody important, but it's just a regular agent, as you saw in this episode.
Right.
He's just some guy going down the tunnel.
Yeah.
I also think the main guy from Sword, the acting director, I think he's going to turn out to be evil.
You think?
Yeah, he seems like too good. Like, oh, I'm here to his white savior kind of. Oh, she's with me. You don't know who this is? I'll get you in. Don't worry.
You're
into the place.
You're right, and it kind of follows my. So we have a thing when we watch shows, especially if it's like a cop show or something. It's like whoever they go, the first suspect they go and talk to is always like somebody that you've recognized from 18 other shows. And as soon as they show up, we're like, bad guy. And it turns out that person ends up being bad guy. So you're right. I mean, he's not like, Jimmy Woo or Darcy that we've seen in previous movies. So we know they're good, but he's
like Robert Redford in
yeah. So this,
like, I'm Alexander Pierce. Oh, you're the bad guy, of course.
Right. So this guy is recognizable, but he's not anyone we've seen in another movie or series before. So you're right. I mean, yeah, he probably is, either in league with whoever's manipulating it or trying to use it for his own means. So yeah, I agree with you there.
I've seen so many episodes of Twilight Zone, so many episodes of every other show where it's like I just felt like half the Sword people are gonna like disappear at one point.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they'll turn into like Darcy and Jimmy and Monica will be standing there, but everyone else was like an illusion inside of their mind.
Yeah.
And like what was going on here? It was all to manipulate Wanda into. Well, the other thing I was thinking is there some cosmic entity that's trying to create mutants because it's trying to whip Wanda into a frenzy. Because what's the best thing you can do? You get her to be settled into a reality where Vision is alive, and then you take that away from her. The realization hits her again that he's dead, and that's when she has her break, and her powers are released, right?
Yes.
And maybe that causes a instead of no more mutants, right? It causes all the mutants kind of thing. So
part of me is still hoping because he is a synthezoid, and I know that Shuri and Wakanda spent at least a little bit of time trying to back him up and stuff like that. That there's some way that Vision, because Paul Bettany is just amazing, and that's the other thing we'll talk about too is how just Paul Bettany's amazing acting chops and the fact that he's getting to do a wide range of things in the show. But I part of me is still hoping, maybe they can bring Vision back. But the problem I have with that, especially when they do it in comics, I'm like, so why just Vision? Why couldn't you bring Pietro back or Tony? Or it's one of those things. It's like once you go down that path, it's like, well, then why wouldn't you try to investigate and use your powers to bring everybody back, right? So it's kind of a
right. Yeah, we talked about this last week too. But I think the difference between Tony and Vision was killed, but Tony sacrificed himself, right?
Right.
So if you can't really bring him back because that nullifies his sacrifice. But Vision was murdered basically by Thanos.
Right. Yeah.
So supposedly, I feel like those are two different things. You could bring him back if you wanted to, but I guess the question is, why would you bring his character back? I like Paul Bettany. Obviously, I would love to see him do more, but dramatically, it makes less sense for that to happen. It makes more sense dramatically for him to be a catalyst for something worse, for Wanda to become a villain, which she does in Doctor Strange, which that's the rumor anyway. And so that makes more sense. Or maybe he comes back at the end of Multiverse of Madness and helps Doctor Strange bring her back from the brink, or I don't know. So they'll bring him back when it's dramatically appropriate, right?
Well, and I mean, two other words. Excuse me, now I'm going. Two other words as to why you would want to bring Vision back in a permanent kind of way is season 2. So if they decide they want to do, if WandaVision isn't just a mini series and they want to do more episodes or seasons, I guess maybe every season could be something going on in her mind. But if you wanted to do something different with season 2, I don't know, but.
That's an interesting question. Are they going to do a second season? I got to think they're not. I feel like these are one-off. I think these are one-offs. I think this is like, what are we going to do because we can't do movies right now?
Well,
and I think there was a lot of discussion like that. So we're going to have these things tie into the movies.
WandaVision and Loki, though, were in development well before COVID.
Sure, but I feel like their dramatic use
And
has been changed.
they were talking about Loki as a multi-season type of show.
Well, I could see Loki being that way, but I don't know.
Maybe
If
not
the
one,
idea
yeah.
of WandaVision is to sort of shoehorn it into Multiverse of Madness, then what do you do for season 2? You can't do the same gimmick, right?
Well, yeah, no,
You
that's
can't
what I'm
just
saying.
you can't do
though.
more. You can't do more sitcoms. You
Right.
can't do more of this. I mean, you have to. I think we won't know until it plays out if there's some
Yeah,
finality
yeah.
to it. I just can't imagine there's more than one season of it. I got to say. I
Well,
can't
no, I
imagine
mean,
that,
you
but-
would completely have to do something totally different for season 2, and that's why I'm saying if you're doing a show about Wanda and Vision, and every season isn't going to be something going on in her head or some alternate universe thing, then I mean, it's in the title. You kind of bring back Vision. So, but
Well, the funny thing is, it could just the second season could be them living actual domestic bliss somewhere after she's brought back from the brink and becomes a nice person, or loses her powers maybe because
Yeah.
of Multiverse of Madness, and so her and Vision go live in suburbia, and they have an actual family life, and it becomes an actual sitcom where they're the characters in the sitcom. And
I'll be honest, I would totally watch if it was just a straight up sitcom. I would watch it because
well, it would be interesting.
Yeah.
Sure, I agree.
I think it would be fun, and I enjoyed the episodes that, especially the first episode that, other than a couple brief moments, was a straight up sitcom. I thought it played well, and the laugh track in the wrong places, and totally kind of skewering not just tropes in sitcoms, but what was going on in the era, as far as women's rights and things like that. I thought it was smartly written and really well done, and I would
Yeah,
I would totally
Darcy
watch that.
mentioned that too. She's like, and so I've calculated that she's in the kitchen doing the dishes at least once an episode.
Yeah, barf. Yeah.
Oh, and you guys are using those coffee pods too, as I put a coffee pod in our coffee
Yeah,
pod thing.
yeah, exactly.
I'm just kidding.
So
We don't have one of those.
We
But yeah,
do.
I thought it was well done. I hope to see Darcy again. I hope to see all of them again, which I'm sure we will. But the only other thing that was sort of lingering for me, and I'm sure this will be explained at some point, is who or what is Jimmy Woo's missing person?
right, exactly.
Why is he there in the first place? Why did he come all the way from Oakland to New Jersey
Yes.
to find this missing person who is missing that no one's ever heard of? Who is it, and what is going on there?
Yeah, so maybe that's pretty critical to it. I did like the fact that
Well, it has to be, right? The missing person is the person who's manipulating
Yeah, of
Wanda. It
course.
has to be. They have to tie in somewhere, right? I feel
Yeah.
like that's
I
kind of
did-
a given. Maybe not.
I did like the two local cops that had no idea, standing in front of the Westview sign, having their memories wiped of Westview. We're from Eastview. So it's like that was pretty great.
Yeah, but Jimmy Woo said, "How come we have an awareness of?"
Right.
Or maybe it was Monica said that. But how come we have an awareness of the town, but they don't?
Right.
So there's definitely a lot of questions. I did like the fact that he was using a whiteboard, and they even asked the question, "Why hexagonal?"
Well, yeah,
that
and
was
he
funny.
even wrote on there, "Is Vision alive?" So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
Lots of questions, some answers, more questions. I'm sure everyone will stay tuned.
it's a great show, and I think the biggest thing I like about it is they're doing something different with it. They're not just going, "Oh, we're gonna do a Wanda and Vision, prequel that leads up to the Doctor Strange movie." It's like let's be creative and do something interesting with it, which makes me think that the other series are going to be interesting too. It isn't just going to be like, well, here's another adventure of Loki, or here's Falcon and Winter Soldier going out and having adventures. That one may be more kind of mainstream, but I like that they've been doing this whole universe since 2008, and they still don't seem to be running out of creative things to do and say. So that's really cool. I mean,
Yeah.
with the movies, they've always kind of been. I mean, they did political thriller. They've done sci-fi. They've done action adventure. So the fact that they're going forward, not just to go, hey, listen, we got this machine and we can make a bunch of money. It's like, yeah, we can make a bunch of money, but let's be creative and innovative with it. So
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, I think you're right. Loki's off the hook. It's going to be weird
Yeah.
and crazy and all kinds of weird stuff. And that's definitely ripe for multiple seasons, probably. And then I think Falcon and Winter Soldier is probably going to be more of a straight up action thing, but who knows? We'll find out soon.
yes,
But I'm definitely going to stick with WandaVision. Obviously, I'm sure you will too.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
sure
yeah.
everybody else will. So I'm intrigued. It's definitely something you could not do as a movie for sure. I mean, you could, but it wouldn't be as good. The fact that you can take essentially what 8 episodes, 10 episodes, 4 hours, let's say, to
Sure.
develop this story
Yeah.
is you could never do that in movie form unless you did 2 movies, I guess. But then, why would you do that? But anyway,
All I have to say for those that are on the fence and not sure if they should watch WandaVision, all I'll say to them is figure it out. So
figure it out. That's right. So yeah, we should segue into Letterkenny again because although you say people who haven't watched WandaVision should watch it, they probably weren't listening to the last 20 minutes of the show then if they haven't
well, I
watched
guess that's
WandaVision
true.
because they haven't why would they want to hear spoilers about a fourth episode of a show they haven't even watched?
Sure, sure.
Anyway, maybe we should leave the spoilers for the end of the episode from now on. I don't know.
that's-
We'll figure it out someday.
We'll figure it out. Yes.
Figure it out. So Letterkenny, I was skeptical about Letterkenny. Not skeptical. It's like, oh, what is this show? Because I'd seen it pop up on Hulu sometimes, and I'd heard about it, and I probably have watched some of the videos on YouTube way back in the day too. And I don't know why it didn't hit me. Maybe I didn't see any. I'm trying to remember. But you picked it last week, and I was like, all right, Joe has pretty good taste in stuff. I'm going to give it a chance. And so I did. And then I was intrigued and I sort of kind of fell in love with the show and its quirky cast of characters. And then I watched, I'm in the middle of season 6, like I said.
Yes.
I don't know what it is exactly that appeals to me. It is just the people are so quirky. But I love the fact that they're supposed to be these, like the Hicks and stuff. They're supposed to be these, you would think not intellectual, but they have these great intellectual conversations,
Yes.
especially Squirrely Dan. It's like in my women's studies class, talking about Miss Trisha or whatever, and
Yep.
they have really good problems. But I'll be honest, I think one of my favorite characters is Spencer,
Yes.
the Skid.
Yeah.
He's got depth. He's got depths, man.
Actually, I would say Rold is kind of my favorite character.
Yeah, Roll's good too. Yeah.
He's pretty great. Although now that I say that, I'm like, well, yeah, but I also like, so it's tough to nail down a favorite character because they're just all great. And yeah, I had I still have a coworker who is Canadian and who would talk about Letterkenny all the time. And I kind of looked at what the premise of it was, and I'm like, I don't want to watch 8 or 9 seasons of that, even if they're only like 6 episodes long. I'm like, boy, that's going to get boring. And boy, was I wrong, because it does not. It's just so sharply written, and I like how it skewers like everything. It's great. So
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you say that. It is very well written, and the characters who could fall into stereotypes easily, there's more to them. Like I saw an interview with Jared Kiso, who's the creator of the show and who plays Wayne, and he was talking about how you have to have these hard moments where people are tough, right? And then because Wayne is a tough guy, he's the toughest guy on Letterkenny, right?
Yes, exactly.
But then, which is funny that he has to defend his title. But that's how it was in my small town because being the toughest guy was a big deal, and you had to fight a lot,
Right.
or not a lot, but you had to fight some. But he said you got to show him as being tough, but then you got to show like these tender moments too, because he's really tough, but then he does something really nice, or he's like really complimentary, or he's like trying to get something going. And they all have these moments. They're all very, very like guarded with each other sometimes, but then they have these moments like Squirrely Dan's talking about his date with his sweetie, where she's like, "I think some attention should be paid to my butthole."
Yes.
like what the hell?
Oh, yeah.
They're just tossing the ball around. And he's talking about freaking his girlfriend sticking her finger in his butt. But I was like, but the funniest part for that too is when they cut to Wayne and Wayne's like covering, he like moves his arm to cover his butt.
Yes.
He was very uncomfortable with that, but it was funny. But not in a mean way. They're not like homophobic or anything. And they've gone, I feel like as the show has progressed, they've gone to a more inclusive, because it is a lot of white people for sure.
Oh yeah.
But that's but it's like they've gone to become more inclusive, and even the hockey players have kind of evolved, which I thought was interesting because they could have been total stereotypes the entire time, but they've evolved. They've become more self-aware. Having them have to coach the female team, I thought was brilliant. But I also want to say that the season where they're the new guys with the higher level hockey team, those hockey guys were awesome.
Yes, they were pretty great.
It's like Jonesy, blah blah, Boomtown. He's
Yeah.
like talking about so these like minor characters. I don't want to say minor, but these like supporting characters were just so entertaining.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the strengths of the show too, is that they get these supporting guys who come in, and they keep having them come back,
Yes.
and they add to the whole mix. And it's also interesting to me how Katie sort of evolved too, because at the beginning that's Wayne's sister.
Yes.
She was kind of more of the sex symbol in the show, right? Because she'd come out in like little outfits and not put on clothes and whatever. And she's very much changed. I mean, they still have, like Bonnie McMurray or whatever.
Yeah. Bonnie McMurray. Yes.
Bonnie McMurray. But, which is also funny. So yeah, everything is, if I had any criticisms of the show, it was like, I was starting getting tired of the fighting. There's a lot of fighting.
Yes. Yes.
But,
That was the part at the beginning I wasn't sure that not that I'm like anti-violence or anything, but I'm like, that seems to be, if it's just about him beating up people every episode, that's not going to be interesting. But they do really well with it. I mean, I like the fact that, and maybe it's because it's Canada, but most of the people that he fights at the end of it, he puts out his hand and they go on. Like some of them even become close friends.
Well, yeah, I can't remember all the characters' names. I'm not.
It's like
I'm still not
Joint
great at
Boy,
that.
the really big guy.
Yeah,
he beats him
yeah,
and then
Joint Boy-
invites him to a birthday party.
Yeah, Joint Boy's friend. I can't remember Joint Boy's friend. He said he was the toughest guy later, Kenny, but then Wayne beat him, and then now they're pals. And that just happened in an episode I watched. They had that party where the Amish girls were there.
Yes.
Or the Mennonites, sorry.
Yeah.
And they got into a fight, and then he reaches out his hand and helps the guy up, and they have a beer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so, well, that's what I'm saying. So that goes back to what he said in the interview, is like, you have this guy who's super tough, but he's also got a heart, right? Because he's like, okay, it was a good scrap, and now we're friends. I'm not going to keep it. We had our argument, we had our fight, and now we're done. Now it's over. So,
and I like they introduced like the two gay guys that are at the gym that totally flip the objectifying of women at the gym, because they're just like over the top objectifying men.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, Jonesy and Riley become friends with them, and they just hang out. And it's like everything they say, it's like doesn't, anything they say about, overtly gay sexual things or things that are taboo don't phase the main characters. They're just like, well, yeah, that's just life, right? And so they're like all inclusive with who they're friends with, except for the degens from upcountry. But
yeah, no one likes the DJs from country.
Yeah. So
it's just so funny.
it kind of at the same time skewers like again another show that skewers tropes from sitcoms. It's like you said, the Hicks are the main characters, but they have this sharply written, very intellectual dialogue in these discussions. Even when they get crude, they're like these really scientific, detailed discussions, and it's just it's great. It's just I think it's beautifully written, and the fact that 9 seasons in, it's even better than it was at the beginning is just brilliant. So
Well, yeah, they were definitely trying to find their way. Because if people don't know the history, it started out as a YouTube channel, Letterkenny Problems, where the two main guys, Wayne and Derry, would just stand there, and basically they would talk about things like the intros, like the opens they do in the show, where Wayne is just standing there saying, "You're sitting around with your friends one day, having a beer, having a Puppers," and I love the fact you can buy Puppers beer now, which I think is funny. But
yes,
I have a beer. It's just, I'm not Canadian, but I've been to Canada a lot, and it's just, they nail it so well. I mean, I'm sure some of I feel like some of it's an exaggeration, but then again, maybe it's not. But what I was saying is that you're right about their intellectual conversations, and they're very progressive. You feel like they would be like Hicks. They would be, rubes and hayseeds or whatever you want to call them. They'd be like, really conservative or really this or really that or prejudice or whatever. But they are inclusive, and I think Wayne says it a lot. It's like, if a friend asks you for help, you help him, right?
Yeah.
That's a big deal. It's like, we're friends, and if you need help, regardless of our differences, we're all friends. Like when he sits down on Valentine's Day, the Valentine's Day episode, when he's hanging out in the bar with Spencer, and Spencer's the only guy there, and they find common ground, right?
Yeah.
He's never like the Skids before. He
That
finds
was
them. He finds them.
those are great scenes between those two. It's like they're talking about
Well,
hockey.
that's what I'm saying.
It's like, geez.
Yeah, and obviously they both, the Jared Keeso played hockey as a young boy in Canada, as you do, and I'm sure that's the actor who plays Spencer also played hockey too.
Sure.
Because they're on the ice rink hitting the pucks, and the only time they have a problem is when Spencer's like, "I don't tip," right?
Yeah. Yes. And he's like, you don't.
And then he gets mad at that. You don't tip for good service, and they have a fight, and that was it. But that whole scene between them was good. They're having beer, they're hanging out, because they find common ground. And that's what I think I love about the show the most, is that everyone is really kind of different, but we're all kind of the same too, except for the degens from upcountry.
Well, yeah, because everybody hates them.
And they also even became friends with the French.
That's true. They did. Yes.
In Quebec.
Their French counterparts. That was that was pretty great too. But yeah, I like that the conflict between characters, or at least the conflict that the main characters have with other characters, stems from I don't know how to describe it. It stems from, like, if someone's an asshole, it doesn't matter what background there is, they're a bad person. We don't like them. It's not lifestyle and what clique you fit in with doesn't have to do with why we don't like somebody. So that's kind of interesting and a different take. Except for
definitely. They talk about that sometimes, like, oh, is he a good guy? Oh, I'm glad to hear he's a good guy, right?
Yeah.
So that's more important. Being a good guy is more important than your job. It's more important than if you do hay or if you dance out by the dollar store.
Yes.
Which, when I first saw them dancing out there, I'm like, I totally could see that happening. It's just you feel like it's authentic because you feel like he lived this sort of experience and saw this kind of thing.
Yes.
And it's so funny. And yeah, so you're right. It's more important what kind of a person you are and what you do, and how, if you're a good person or whatever, than if you're gay or if you're, if you do drugs or if you do this or do that. The other thing that sort of bothers me, and this may be just because of me, you don't see it that often in American television, but everybody smokes.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly.
Which I thought was kind of weird too. They call it a dart. I'll have a dart.
Yes.
Everybody in the show smokes, almost, not everybody, but the main characters do, and you never see that in an American show.
Yeah, no, that's not done anymore. Or if you do, probably not in a show, but in a movie, that's usually the signal that person's not good. Right?
Well, I remember it being a big deal when people in Mad Men were smoking.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's what happened in the times, right? That was the times. But
Right.
this is modern times. Obviously, Letterkenny takes place in modern day.
Yeah.
But it was weird to see everybody like pulling out a pack of cigarettes and smoking.
Yes.
The main characters, and I'm like, are they smoking weed? Because that makes more sense, maybe. But no, it's just cigarettes. And
the other thing I really enjoy about the show is they have bits that they reference back to throughout the series. Like anytime somebody says "to be fair," they start this whole "to be fair" thing, and it builds and changes as the show goes. And there's little like callbacks to things in dialogue that if you've been watching the whole thing, you're like, oh, that's really funny, or that's great. If you hadn't been, you'd be like, I'm not quite sure what that's supposed to be. But
I'm sure that I'm missing, I would say, 20% of the jokes too, because I don't know that much about Canadian hockey, first of all,
right,
and I don't know that much about Canada, except what I've been up in Canada a few times. But you don't. I'm missing a lot of the humor, I would bet. But that's the thing I think that makes the show successful, is that you don't have to be from the small town, because small towns are similar for a lot of people. Like, I grew up in a quote unquote small town, but it was nothing like that.
Yeah,
it wasn't in Canada. It was in Southern California. But I feel like there was a lot of parallels between the two. There was like different groups, and there was this and that, and people can relate to it, and you can relate to these people because you feel like you know them. They're kind of more 3D, I guess. They're more what am I trying to say?
Yeah,
they're more real. They're more accessible, and they feel like real people because they've been developed. Maybe it's because I've watched it for 6 seasons already, but you feel like they were fully developed people that you could see on the side of the road with a vegetable stand. It totally makes sense.
Oh, well, see, I grew up, at least in my formative years, my teenage years, in a small town in North Carolina, and there was totally those groups: the Hicks, the Jocks, the Skids, or the punks, or whatever you wanted to call them at that time, back in as my oldest son says, the 1900s. So yeah, all of those groups were. I mean, I had friends that were gay that fit into different groups and stuff too. So it is interesting for me to watch the show, and I'm like, oh, that hits all of the stereotypical groups from when I was in high school, but they weren't stereotypes. That's what they were. I mean, somebody you fit into one of those categories for the most part. So
Sure.
that's been kind of fun to watch. Doesn't I'm old enough now; it doesn't bring up any PTSD from then. But yeah, no,
That's
it's
good.
the other thing too. I want to go back. I actually, now that I've finished it, I want to go back and watch again because there is a lot of rapid fire dialogue, so it's easy to miss things. I mean, there's been episodes
Yeah.
where we're like, "Have we watched this one?" Yeah, I think so, but let's just watch it again. And it's like, wow, I completely missed that the first time. So yeah,
Well, yeah, I feel that way about a lot of the jokes, a
yeah,
lot of the references to specific Canadian things.
yeah,
But I feel like as the show has progressed, they've kind of tried to make it more accessible to non-Canadians.
yeah.
So, I mean, the way they talk about the states, the way they talk about LA in that one episode.
Yeah,
I was in,
LA.
you
Yes.
got tacos on Runyon Canyon. I'm like, yeah, wow, I used to go on Runyon Canyon. That's sad. But anyway, back in LA. So, I think that Jared doesn't like Los Angeles because he did go down there to be an actor, and I don't think it worked out as well as he was hoping.
Yeah, he's
And
been in a
so
few things and
he
small
has, yeah,
roles.
definitely. And he came back to Canada to create his show, which is going to blow up now. So I think it's great. I would I'm for anybody creating things, and I like to see the fact that if you create something that obviously means a lot to you, and you put a lot of heart into it, it pays off. I think that's awesome. So good for him and good for everybody on the show. They're doing great.
So yeah, I mean, this is a good example of, like you said, someone who has a passion project and it's exploded now and become really successful, and lots of people love it. I mean, I have to applaud that. Anytime anyone does anything like that and it becomes a successful TV show or movie, even if it's something that I don't care about, or a genre that I don't particularly like to watch, I still kind of applaud that. And if when I see those stories, it's like, good on them. And that's, you probably know this too, being in movies and TV, you want to see those successes because, it gives anybody the potential that your passion project could actually go somewhere and do well. So it's.
Yeah, absolutely. I read a book one time. I think it was by Roger Ebert, maybe, or maybe it was, yeah. I think it was Roger Ebert. He had a quote, not a book, but it was a quote that he made that once you put the means of production in as many hands as possible, you're going to get more stuff. So I'm sure that the fact that Jared Kiso went down to LA to try to make it as an actor, and had some success, but he was probably frustrated by that and decided to go and make his own thing. Because you can make YouTube videos now. It's anybody could do that if they want to. So it's like, I'm just going to do this thing that I'm passionate about, that I have an affinity for, and I'm going to make it funny, and it paid off for him. And I think that's terrific. Like you said, I think it's terrific that that people can do that now. And so there should not be any barriers to your creativity. If these guys can do it, then a lot of other people can too. Now, it's not going to all succeed for everybody, obviously, because you still have to have some, ability. You have to be able to write and be funny. But he had a great idea, a great premise that they executed well, and it
Yeah.
just blew up from there. And again, that makes me, I'm very happy about that. And thank you for
Oh, sure.
suggesting it last week. And I'm glad you did. I'm glad I listened to you. So I'll try to keep doing that.
Well, yeah, I mean, Jared Kiso and Jacob Tierney are the two guys that primarily write it, and Jacob Tierney directs the whole thing, every episode. And he's the guy who plays Glenn, the sexually ambiguous pastor.
Pastor
in the
slash
show.
waitress slash bartender
Yes.
slash whatever.
Yes. But yeah,
Wayne!
it's been going for 9 seasons, and
Yeah.
those two guys are the primary creators behind it. So good on them, and it's still
Yeah.
relevant. It's still funny.
I'm
So,
sure. I'm sure
yeah.
it'll keep going. And they've also, before COVID, they were doing like live shows too
Yeah,
around Canada mostly. I would actually go see that. It's just, again, for me, it comes down to the characters. The characters seem like real people, and they're very distinct in their personalities, and they're very interesting to me, and they're funny. And funny is good. I ended up watching the guy who plays Squirrely Dan. I can't. I feel bad. I can't remember the actor's name, but he's a stand-up comedian. So I watched a couple of his stand-up bits. He's extremely funny. So
Yes.
K. Todd, oh, I should look it up. But anyway, I
K.
can't.
Trevor Wilson.
K. Trevor Wilson, thank you. But he
I
speaks.
actually saw one of his bits, and I thought it was funny because, the thing about Squirrely Dan is he puts S's at the end of everything.
Right.
And the comedian actually does a bit about that and like what's wrong with people that do that. So I thought that was kind of funny.
Well, right. It's funny to see them interviewed or do other things where they're speaking, straight up English and not like affected English like they are in the show. Although
Right.
Kiso kind of sounds a little bit like his character, but not quite as much. But a lot of them, they sound, I guess, what they call that a cosmopolitan accent or something for
Yes.
to be more palatable to Americans. But yeah, it's anyway. If you haven't seen Letterkenny, it's definitely worth watching. Give it a chance. Get past the fighting and get past the smoking, and get into it. Watch it for the first few seasons. It definitely grows on you, and I'll watch the rest. And I'm a fan now, so I will definitely keep up with it.
Watch the first 6 episodes, and I am confident by the end of it you'll be like, okay, next season. And you'll
Even
be
if you go back to the original YouTube videos,
Yeah.
they're very funny too. So
Yes.
go check that out. But so we should mention The Expanse. Although for some reason I did not watch the most recent episode. I don't know exactly what happened. This week was busy for me, as I know it was for you. I know. So I think what we should do is rather than talk about one episode, we should wait until we watch both episodes, because this past episode will sort of lead into the finale for this season, which is next week. While we're recording this, it's next week. And so once we watch that, on the next episode of the Flickcast, we will discuss the 2 episodes, sort of penultimate episode and the finale episode. Does that sound right?
Yeah, no, we'll totally I'll use the lingo. We'll circle back next
We'll circle
episode.
back. Exactly.
And,
We'll definitely circle back. So, so other important bits of business. Thank God that Zack Snyder's Justice League now has a release date, March 18th.
Yes.
Everyone, mark your calendars to watch the Snyder Cut, because it's coming
So-
to HBO Max, baby.
So is it going to be just one? I mean, it's gone back and forth. It was going to be a movie, then a 4-hour miniseries, and now it's a movie again, I guess. I don't know. Is it?
I don't really know. I thought it was still episodic. So,
Okay.
but we'll see. You know what? March 18th. That's all you got to know. Be
Well,
there.
we'll find out. Yeah.
HBO Max. Be there.
Yes, be there.
Set your VCRs or whatever you have these days. I don't even know.
Set your VCR. Set your Betamax to
Set your
record.
Betamax to record. You know what? I remember having to record. I had to teach my parents how to set the VCR. So I'm just saying. I was the
a
one.
big whiz with VCRs. I thought they were great. I'm like, you mean I can record this thing when I'm not home and then watch it when I this is beautiful. And kids today are be like, well, yeah, you can watch anything anytime you want.
Yeah, that's
What the hell's
ridiculous. I
wrong
tried to
with
explain that to the kid, and he's like, "You mean you had to like be there?" I'm like, "Yeah, before we had VCRs, we had to actually sit in front of the TV at 8:30 on Thursday to watch the show. That was our only chance to watch the
Yeah.
show." Or
it might get repeated again
It
later,
might,
but
yeah.
maybe not, you know.
yeah, and then we could record it with tapes. We put a tape in the VCR,
Yes.
and you label the tapes. And someone taped over your show, and you're like, "Oh man, someone taped over that episode. Damn it!" So
Or something happened and it stopped, or it ate the tape, or didn't record where, there were a few times where I'd come home and I'm like, that's not what I set it to record. What the hell is this soap opera on?
yeah, sometimes the show would go long, and it would cut off right before the end. Yeah.
God, yes.
That was the worst.
Yeah.
But although technology is not perfect, because as we're recording the show, my recording somehow tripped up for a second. So that's so
Well,
even Apple Logic is not infallible. Thanks a lot, Apple. But,
yeah, kids. Even your, newfangled digital everything isn't perfect. So there.
Exactly. So we'll get back to The Expanse, and I just wanted to mention Snyder's cut. I mean, you know what? And at this point, as we talked about, it's almost morbid curiosity. Either it's going to be the greatest, it's going to be the greatest fucking thing ever, or it's going to be like, oh my God, why did you bother?
We've uncovered this brand new, never seen footage of the worst train wreck in the history of the world. Do you want to watch it? Sure.
Yes, I love it. I don't know, man. It's
I'll watch it.
Of course, you'll watch it. And the worst part is, it's like many things that bother me about streaming is now if it's episodic, so you're going to get one episode or maybe 2, and then you have to wait a week. I'm like, come on, just drop the whole thing, people.
Yes.
So
yeah.
you waited this long. So I don't know. You know what? As much as I joke about it, I think in some ways it's nice, and I think I said this before, that it's nice that he got another chance because
Yeah,
he wouldn't
yeah,
have left the movie if he didn't have to. He made the right choice, obviously. He wouldn't have left if he didn't have to, and to get a chance to complete your whatever is a great break for him and a great thing that they're doing. Now,
yes.
should it have happened, and is this money being spent when it shouldn't have been and maybe should have been given to other projects with other people, other creators? Sure, probably. But that's not how Hollywood works sometimes, and I wish it would work differently, but it doesn't. So he's getting another chance to complete his vision, quote unquote. And
Yeah.
then,
No, I'm all for it.
but will other people get a chance to do other things? I don't know. There's lots of directors who don't get work, and that bothers me too. And then I feel like,
True.
well, the money could have gone for that or another. You could have made 2 or 3 movies for the money you spent on recutting this thing. So and
No, I agree.
changing
We
the
talked
aspect
about this.
ratio and redoing the effects and whatever. But
Yeah,
that's not
yeah.
how it works. So anyway, but I'll still watch it.
Rele- Release the Ayer cut.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen, man.
Well, so
Not gonna
yeah,
happen.
I do have a hard time with that because I mean, I like to think, but I mean it's a business, but I'd like to think that because they said, hey, here's this money to finish this, it doesn't necessarily mean they took it away from being able to do other projects. That's probably what happened, but I'd like to think, in my perfect world, that they're like, well, we didn't spend $70 million this year on advertising for all these movies. We'll spend it on him finishing this movie, but we'll still finance these smaller movies that we were planning to. I'd like to think that, but
Well, yeah, that's possible, and they do need subscribers for HBO Max,
yeah,
and so it
it
makes
just
sense.
the struggle I have is like, so for instance, I don't know if you ever saw Richard Kelly's Southland Tales.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I love that movie, but he's had a cut that he showed at festivals previous that didn't go over well, and the studio made him cut it down and all this kind of stuff. They just released a Blu-ray that's got that cut on it, but he didn't have $70 million to color correct it and finish the special effects. So it's a rough version. It's basically a work print, and special effects and stuff aren't done. And I'm like, I would personally, I probably would have rather have seen a completed director's cut of Southland Tales than maybe Zack Snyder's Justice League, or both. It's like, so it would have been, like you said, it would be nice to know that in this day and age, especially with streaming services, that anybody that would be like, hey, I'd like to revisit this, or hey, I have this uncompleted cut, that they'd be able to get the resources to finish it too. I mean, say I joke about release the Ayer cut. I'd like to see his completed actual vision for Suicide Squad. I think that would be cool to see. So yeah, I
Yeah,
agree. It's like,
it would be.
does this mean other people will get the chance? Probably not. And
No.
who knows though? I mean, if this does balloons and does well for HBO Max, they may say, let's get, what else do we have in the vault that we can complete and finish and release. So
Well,
I
they'll
don't
just
know.
start rebooting stuff like or whatever. But I think this was a special case. I don't think we're going to see a huge crop of these things pop up. I think there was a lot of pent up, what's the word, demand, if you will,
Yeah.
for this particular thing because of the circumstances and because of people sort of having a backlash against Joss Whedon for probably good reasons.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, probably for good reasons. He's not as
Yeah.
not as friendly a person as it was thought originally.
His star has fallen from the sky.
It
But
has,
rightly so.
it has,
Rightly
it
so.
has, and so if Zack Snyder wouldn't have left, and this wouldn't have all been a thing, unless it was a tragic circumstance, and I think that gives him a little bit more.
Yeah.
There's a more reasoning behind it. Plus, Warner Brothers has invested a lot of money in Zack Snyder. They're in the Zack Snyder business. He was basically the vision, the controlling, voice behind all of their Justice League movies, their Superman movies, their whatever. He was rebuilding the whole franchise for them, and so they have a lot invested emotionally and financially in his success. So I'm sure that he had a leg up for all of that. Now, whether
Yeah.
whether it was his idea or their idea or whether it was the internet's idea, it doesn't matter. They invested a lot more money in him than they would ever invest in the guy who made a couple of movies that no one saw. I hate to say it. I love his films. I love Donnie Darko in particular.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he's never had mainstream success. He's never
Oh
had
no. Yeah,
blockbuster
not at all.
success. And he's I hate to say this, but kind of notoriously difficult to work with too. So
Yes.
that kind of thing does not bode well for getting your cut out there. So
Well, yeah. I mean, like you said, there was. I mean, even the actors were behind the Snyder cut, and
sure.
I'm sure all studios have a team of people that do nothing but figure out how the studio makes money. And I'm sure they calculated it, and at some point they're like, listen, you're going to make a lot of money on this. You need to do this. Something like Southland Tales or even Suicide Squad, they're like, you've made the money you're going to make on this. You're not going to make any more. So
the
there's no
physics are
reason to
right
revisit.
here. Oh, sorry. Back in the, did you ever see that back in the, like when I used to go to the movie theater in LA? I don't know if they had this in other places. In LA, they had this thing where
LA.
they'd show stuff at the beginning of the movies, and there was always like these Los Angeles Times interstitial things where here's how we make this, and there was always this one where they were going to do this sequence of stunts or whatever, and the guy's like, can we do this without CGI? And this other guy like taps his laptop and smacks the screen and goes, the physics are right here, we could totally do it without CGI. And it's just it was just so cheesy and so almost like a comedic version of what really happens that people
Right.
People who worked in the business, whatever, and LA is a very company town, as people know, but we would make fun of that because it was so stupid. And so I still think of that sometimes, and that's a total thing just for people who lived in Los Angeles and saw those things like at the movie theater sometimes. But they don't do it anymore. But it's just so dumb. And I don't know why I brought that up, but it was just funny to me. It made me think about it. But so if you've seen those in Los Angeles, you know what I'm talking about. But I don't know if they ever showed them at other movie theaters or other
Nah,
places.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So okay, so it's not important. You're never going to see a Richard Kelly cut of anything. I'm sorry, but until he makes a big
Yeah.
movie or maybe he's not a person who wants to play ball with the studios, and Zack Snyder is. And Zack Snyder, among other things, is also a good communicator. He's a good talker. He's probably good in a room, right? So he can say, "Here's my vision," and he can convince people that he's right. And I don't know that Kelly
Yeah.
can do that.
Well,
So.
I mean, and at one point he was like the top guy who was leading their whole
Right, exactly.
DC cinematic, universe. And even if he's not that anymore, you can look at the varying success of things done for DC without him as far as movies. And I bet they're saying, listen, there a bunch of people want to see this. The actors are interested. We can get a ton of subscribers to our streaming service, and probably sell it on Blu-ray for serious money. Why would we not do this, right? So yeah.
Well, yeah,
You're right.
it was a cost benefit analysis, obviously. So
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
and they did. That's probably why they were like, "Oh, well, you can't really shoot anything." Which I'm sure they did some pickups, but not much, probably. But yeah, the idea
they
that the
did some
actors were
shots, yeah.
involved. Ben Affleck were like, "Sure, I'll do it," and they were down, and everybody was down for it. So I mean, you can see that on social media. They're all like pumping it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So even Jason Momoa. So if Jason Momoa says it's okay, it must be, right?
Yes.
I'm just saying that guy. I'll just do whatever he says. Whatever you say, sir. I'm down.
I
But,
would I would hang out with him. He's pretty cool.
I'd have a beer with him.
Yeah. I
Definitely.
was gonna say I'd play D&D with him, but that's the other Joe. What's his name? So
Mangello, whatever.
yeah, I bet Momoa would play D&D.
He probably does. Did you see? Speaking of Joe Mangello, I always say his name wrong. Mangello.
Me too. Yeah.
Did you see his most recent movie,
No.
Arch Enemy?
No. Is it good?
I don't know if good. I don't know if that's the word I would use. It's
What-
definitely interesting. I didn't expect it to be as it was. I thought it would be more straightforward, but then I realized they didn't have a lot of money, and so the fact that there was like animated sequences in it, which kind of took me by surprise. I was like, oh, interesting. So this is how you're going to get around having visual effects. Gotcha.
Nice.
But it was, yeah, he's good. He's really good in it. It's directed in a kind of a weird sort of, I don't know. I don't know if it was fantastically directed, but I enjoyed it, and I thought it was interesting. And I would say if you are a fan of his, or if you're a fan of sort of superhero movies, it definitely sort of goes in a different way for those kind of things. It's worth checking out. You know what? I'd like to know your opinion of it. So maybe you should watch it, and then we can talk about it later.
I can say there are very few things that I've watched in my lifetime that I'm like, I don't think there's anything I've watched where I have truly meant well, I just wasted 2 hours of my life, or
Yeah, I
that's two
agree with
hours
you.
I'll
Yeah.
never get back. I mean, even most things, if they're heading in that direction, I'm going to stop watching them. I'm not going to go, well, I've started it now, I've got to finish it. I'm not that kind of person. I'm just like, you know what, this isn't for me. I'll go on to the next thing. And I won't, spend the next 6 months hating it on Facebook. It's just like, yeah, yeah. The same thing with TV shows. It's like, I gave it an episode, wasn't interesting to me. I'll go on to something else. So yeah, no, I'll give it a shot.
With
sounds
TV,
interesting.
I tend to give TV shows at least 2 episodes, because the pilot's
Yeah,
never.
that's
It's
true.
not always the good indicator, because the pilot's
Yeah.
like something else, and then maybe a year later they do the show. So I like to give them an
Totally
episode or
new
two.
sets.
Yeah, yeah. But that's the way I felt about a lot of things. I'll watch it. In fact, that's the way I felt about. I'm going to pick something today, but that's the way I felt about that. I don't think anything's ever wasted. I mean, yeah, some movies are shit. Let's be honest. And then I'll probably. It's pretty rare that I'll turn anything off. I'll just watch it and be like, okay, I'm gonna tough it out and try to
Yeah.
find, because a lot of times stuff will get recommended to me, or I'll get screeners, or I'll get whatever, and I'm like, well, I kind of feel like I should watch this since it was recommended by someone whose opinion I think is usually valid. So I'll give it a chance, and I don't always agree, but a lot of times I'll find something that I like that I didn't know about, like Letterkenny. I didn't realize that wouldn't have been something on my radar. I mean, it was kind of, but I wouldn't have jumped on it and started watching it as I wouldn't have crushed it so much if it wasn't for you.
Well,
So
I mean, especially with movies, like, so as an example, well, I went into The Matrix not knowing anything, and if I had a few minutes into it go, well, this just looks like a hacker movie, I'm not interested, and turned it off, I would have missed a really great movie, right? So you don't know. I mean, sometimes you can tell. It's like, okay, this is what this movie is, and it's just not something I'm interested in. But like you said, give it a chance, and let's see where the story's actually going. So,
right, but there's definitely stuff that I'm not like. I can tell you right now, I'm not interested in that.
yeah, and
Certain
I'm not
certain
gonna, but I'm not
genres, or
gonna,
certain
yeah, I'm not
whatever.
gonna
It's like,
hate watch it and then
no.
bitch about it. It's just
Well,
like,
there's no
that's
time.
not
There's
for
no
me.
there's no time for hate watching anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not like guilty pleasure movies. Like, I don't even like that term. It's like, I'm going to watch something and I'm going to enjoy it, or I'm not going to enjoy it.
right.
But I don't have any guilty pleasures. I don't know what that means. But I mean, I know what it means, but it's not something that applies to me. But if there's really something I know I'm not interested in, I'm not going to bother even watching it. But then, conversely, there's been some things where I said, "Oh, I wouldn't be interesting at all," and then I ended up watching them and thought it was great. So try to.
Yeah,
I think the
exactly.
bottom line is you keep yourself open to experiences, right? You try to keep yourself open to all experiences, and not be closed-minded about almost anything. So
Yeah, and I try to talk the most about the things that I really like and am excited about, or even as things like, hey, this movie ended up being something that I didn't think it was going to be, and it was pretty enjoyable. You should check it out. I'm not going to, be like, what is that dumbass on YouTube, Doomcock or whatever. I'm not going to be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to, do 18 hours on YouTube of why I hated this one scene in this episode of the show that is horrible and you shouldn't be watching anyway, but I'm going to watch it all. It's like, I've never understood that. It's like, if you don't like it, just stop watching it. It's
well, that's
just,
I don't have the time for like haters like that anymore. Neither do you.
Yeah.
And speaking of haters, we could touch briefly on the new theories about Disney and Star Wars.
Yes.
Just briefly though, because it's hater spawn basically. It's like, oh, they're going to retcon all the shows, or they're going to retcon the movies now and fix everything with whatever. It's because all the Star Wars movies were shit. Now, I didn't love the third trilogy that much. People love it. Some people didn't like it. I didn't think Last Jedi was all that. And I didn't think Rise of Skywalker I thought was kind of crap, but it's still Star Wars, man. And I can always watch the originals. I don't have to watch those anymore, and I probably won't, to be honest. But but I don't know that they're going to spend time and energy changing all of that now
Well,
with
it here's
anyway.
here's how absurd this is.
Here's the
A lot
theory.
of
Tell
this,
us.
well, a lot of this extends from a snippet from an interview Favreau did the other day, where he said I'm in constant communication with Dave Filoni, and we're constantly talking about story and how it impacts what came before and how it impacts like the sequels because we're in between, and things like that. So from that, it's now been extrapolated that so he didn't mention Kathleen Kennedy, so she's out. She's going to get fired. And he's talking about how their story is impacting the other Star Wars movies, which means they're going to remake the sequels. I'm like, huh? How did you? What? so so apparently, they're going to do Mandalorian, and then they're going to do a time jump and do one season of episodes per sequel movie and remake them because apparently also J.J. Abrams shot a whole ton of footage with Luke, Han, and Leia interacting that he decided to leave on the cutting room floor, and that's housed in a vault, and so they're going to use that footage to remake the sequels.
I believe there's
So
more. I believe there's more footage for sure, but I
yes,
don't know if it's of
but
Luke, Han, and Leia interacting. It could be. Who knows? There could be a lot of stuff. I would love to see all of that, especially now that Carrie Fisher's gone. But I think it would
this is
be
all from studio insiders, right?
sure.
Or
Yeah,
internet sources.
internet
So
sources, yeah, which are totally reliable. So
I see this stuff, and I mean I don't spend. Yeah, we're talking about it, but just because of various news feeds, these things pop up, and I'm like, okay. So again, it's like that's where you want to spend all this time and energy on this. Why are you not like The Expanse or something that is really good that you love? Why don't you spend time with that? But I guess that doesn't get the hits and the clickbait, clicks. So
yeah, figure it out. No,
you figure it out. Don't make me come over there and talk to you.
exactly. It's people with time on their hands, people that are angry, but it's a lot of it is like you said, clickbait or negative opinions get more traction a lot of times. Unfortunately, people
Yeah.
who hate something, more people are interested in why does this person hate this thing. So I don't think they're going to do that. However, I can
No.
understand where some of that comes from because of what they're doing with Mandalorian, and especially bringing back Boba Fett and letting him live and be as he was intended to be, not the way he was,
Sure.
treated in Return of the Jedi. So I understand that, and that could be spawning from there. But what they're talking about is a lot more time and effort and money for really no payoff. Because what's the point
Right.
of that? The movies got made; they still made a lot of money, so they're
Yes,
not.
they did.
Yeah, they're still hugely successful, and they still have a lot of fans who enjoyed them. So
Yes.
the idea that they would go back and retcon all their stuff is kind of ludicrous. They don't. It's people who don't understand how things work clearly. So
Well, and here's the thing: as much as Favreau and Filoni talk about making sure things fit in and stuff like that, I promise you that even them and anybody making the Star Wars movies and TV shows don't care that much about canon, quote unquote, or continuity as the people making the YouTube videos. They're just like, we're not going to invalidate a movie that just made $1 billion. It's just not going to happen. It's just
no, and not on their own. They're certainly not going to go out
right,
there and do whatever they want. The bottom
right,
line is Disney is still paying for the Mandalorian, so
right.
they're not. Well, unless they can make a buck from it, maybe they would. But I don't
Maybe.
think
I
I don't
mean,
think Favreau and Filoni are going to be like, well, let's just make these shows that totally destroy everything that was built. I mean,
right.
even with
Yeah.
Clone Wars did its own thing, but it still fit into the Star Wars
Right.
mythos. And I also think
And
that there's fatigue about Skywalkers, and there's not going to
sure.
be as many stories around. Although we did get Luke in the Mandalorian, so I don't know. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but
Well, so now the rumor is they're going to make a Luke and Grogu series. So
I would watch that.
yeah, I totally would. Right. I think they should do like people have been suggesting, cast Sebastian Stan as a young Luke Skywalker. He totally could do it.
Yeah, you don't think they would just Uncanny Valley Luke for 6 episodes? Probably not. Huh?
Nah, probably not.
All right. We should pick something.
Anyway.
If you got picked, you got to pick. I got to pick. You got to pick.
I have a pick. The one I was going to pick for this week, I'm going to save for next week. But I have another pick.
Well, the only thing I was going to say is there's a movie that just came out on HBO Max called The Little Things, starring Denzel Washington and Rami Malek and
I
Jared
want to
Leto.
see that.
I watched it. Here's the thing about it. It's I love sort of procedural serial killer cop movies, especially like Seven, which is one of my favorite movies of all time in that genre. It has a lot of the same energy, but it's not quite as good as Seven. I think Seven was a little bit more stylistic and a little bit more. I mean, because it's Fincher, so I mean, come on.
Well,
Not
yeah.
not that John Lee Hooker's not a great director. He's a good director and a good writer. It's just a lot of it was sort of familiar, and that's not always a bad thing. But the fact that you got Denzel in it and Rami Malek and Jared Leto, who is
Yeah.
creepy as fuck in this movie. But I mean, Denzel, you could hand him anything and he's going to bring it to a huge level. And he and Rami Malek have some good scenes together. It's definitely worth watching. I recommend watching it. It's not like particularly violent or gruesome or anything. In fact, it's not violent or gruesome at all, really.
No heads in boxes or anything.
What's in the box, man? You never saw the box. You don't know what's in there. I mean, he says
Right.
it's her head, but we never see it. Oh, that's a spoiler.
Oh,
for
yeah, we
Seven,
do.
sorry.
No, we do.
What? You see the hair. You don't see the whole thing. Come
You
on.
see it briefly when he opens the box and it cuts away. So
It's her hair. That's all you see.
you can cut, you can pause and see. So
Why would you? That's morbid. That's weird.
I know.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Fine. But it's definitely got that same vibe, and it's definitely got that feel. But again, I like procedural stuff like that, and I like those kind of things. It's a little bit of Seven, a little bit of True Detective, which I thought was a great show. Even in all of its seasons, obviously the first one being the best one, but it's creepy. It's very atmospheric. It's like noirish, kind of weird, sort of, and and a good ending. So a good twist ending, which I sort of figured out, but then I've seen 100,000 of these movies, so I'm not the perfect audience for it, but I enjoyed it. So The Little Things, HBO Max, definitely worth watching. So there you go.
Cool. My pick is going to be a trailer, and it's the Godzilla versus Kong trailer. I can say my inner 12-year-old.
Kong punches Godzilla in the fucking face.
Oh, just
I'm just saying.
Not only that, but the whole leaping at him with an axe. For God's sake, it's like, what
know.
the
It was
hell
cool.
is that? I'm like, oh, they're fighting on the deck of an aircraft carrier. I mean, I'm just like, you reached into my brain and said, we're gonna make your dreams come true. Really? I mean, and this is just from the trailer for this movie. I'm like, I will say that would, if I had to pick a movie, I won't, but if I had to pick a movie to risk COVID to see in the theater, it would be that movie.
Wow.
Because, oh my God. But I won't. I'll watch it on my big screen TV at home. But yeah, I'm like, I don't even care about the human characters in it. I just,
Well, and
much
neither
like
does the
Transformers
filmmakers,
movies, I don't care about but I've liked the two most recent Godzilla movies, and I like Kong, on Skull Island, and I like the universe they've been building. I hope that while this is obviously a culmination of what they've been working on, I hope they continue forward with this kind of kaiju universe storyline, because I would watch way more movies of this. But that trailer was well put together. They did a great job, and it's like, yeah, I'm totally invested in this now, so I can't wait. We only have to wait a few more weeks because it comes out in March. So
yeah, I'm down. Yeah, I loved Destroy All Monsters, one of my favorite Godzilla movies.
Yes.
I know that's an easy pick because it's amazing, but Kong versus Mechagodzilla, or I'm sorry, Godzilla versus Mecha Kong. I can't remember which one, but I'm totally I'm sold. It's like Pacific Rim,
Yeah.
guys in giant mech suits fighting monsters, and now this is it's exactly my taste. And the trailer is excellent, man. Whoever did the people that did the trailer did a bang up job. It is great.
They need an award or 12, because
that is some trailer cutting magic right there.
Yes, it is. That's how you put a trailer together.
It is, and obviously they have a lot of good stuff to work with. But man, that was well done. So I was going to mention that, but I'm glad you did. So I'm there. But yeah, you know what? I'm not gonna go to the theater. I'm afraid.
No.
I'll watch it. I'll watch it on the TV.
I wish I could, but because that's definitely a movie you want to see on the big screen. But
it is. I hope
my
that
big screen at home will suffice.
Yeah, I hope that they re-release some of this stuff in theaters.
Yeah.
down the
But yeah,
road.
Godzilla versus Kong. I have a feeling we will be chatting about that on this very show. So
We shall. So, all right. So, find the Flickcast on Stitcher and on Apple Podcasts and on Google Podcasts and on the website, on Twitter at the Flickcast. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/theflickcast. So you can throw a few bucks to the show if you want to. And you can also find Joe and I on the socials. Joe is at What Joe Writes, and I am at Chris Hugh on Twitter. And we're also on the show's also on Facebook, and we're everywhere, man. Just everywhere.
Yeah.
You can't escape us.
You
But
can
that's
always
it.
you can find us everywhere. You can talk to us. You can tell us what you like, and you can try to tell us what you want to hear about. But we're us, man. You can't contain us. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said that.
We contain multitudes, right? Is that what you're saying? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. For Joe Dilworth, I'm Chris Ulrich. That was the Flickcast. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, everybody.